Time and time again, we have seen people murdered to keep quiet, and they love to cover them up as overdoses, accidental or otherwise. That's what they did with rapper Pimp C as well. Follow me down the rabbit hole to find out what really happened. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the rabbit hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we are talking about Pimp C. If you guys don't know, there are so many rappers that they have killed, and I don't think that it's a coincidence. And in this case, again, he was going to expose the industry, so they got rid of him. Thank you, Spizzy, for requesting this episode. This might be part of a series, so we'll see what happens with it. Before we get started, of course, I love to thank our sponsors. So thank you, Wise Wolf Gold, for sponsoring my podcast. Guys, if you want gold and silver delivered straight to your front door for as little as $50 a month, go to rabbithole.gold right now, and you can sign up for a membership that comes every single month to your front door. It's super, super easy, and you don't actually have to go and talk to anybody or do anything. You just get gold and silver delivered straight to your front door. Let's dive in. Chad Lamont Butler, known as Pimp C, was born on December 29th, 1973 in Crowley, Louisiana. He was the only child of Charleston Butler and Weslyn, Mama Wes, Butler Jacob Monroe. He was born prematurely and had a number of health issues because of it, including a birth defect that caused his legs to point inward. Braces did help fix his legs. He had poor eyesight and was almost blind after a severe bout of pink eye and had pneumonia at least 9 different times as a child. That's like so many times and so scary as a mom. He was born in Louisiana but was raised in Port Arthur, Texas. His father and stepfather were both musicians, and so that's kind of just the path that he was bound to take. He learned to play many instruments by ear to include the piano, trumpet, drums, and flugelhorn. As a teen, he joined the choir. He was encouraged by his stepfather to write and create his own music, which he did. He had grown up with a classical background, but also sang Italian sonnets, Negro spirituals, and other things like that, but was always most interested in the emerging hip-hop genre. This led him to become friends with Bernard Freeman, also known as Bun B. They bonded over their shared passion for music. In 1987, Chad and Mitchell Queen, Big Mitch, formed the rap group Underground Kings, which is often referred to as UGK. Big Mitch left the group to pursue a football career, and he was replaced by Bun B. Big Mitch would still make appearances on some songs, but he was focused elsewhere. The group would go on to help shape the sound of Southern hip-hop. You can hear funk and soul mixed in with their beats, and it is a counterpoint to the crisper, harsher coastal sounds at the time. UGK released the EP The Southern Way, and it was pretty successful in the local area, which actually led to the group being signed to Jive Records in 1992. At the time, hip-hop was coming from New York, and it was starting to become pretty popular as well on the West Coast. We were starting to see rappers gaining popularity out there, but Texas, like rap really didn't come from Texas. So this was like a huge shift in where rap was coming from and this like Southern like country hip hop twang they were putting on it. They released their major label debut, Too Hard to Swallow, with Jive in November of 1992, which did very well. 5 of the songs on Too Hard to Swallow were actually released 2 months before the album on an EP distributed by Big Time Records named Band. Probably appropriately named Band because they had already signed with Jive. Their second album, released in 1994, was called Super Tight. This album was even more successful, and it made it on the Billboard 200, where it peaked at 95. In 1996, they released their third album, Ridin' Dirty. This album was the most successful, reaching number 15 on the Billboard 200. After that album, the group took a bit of a hiatus. With the turn of the century came a breakthrough for UGK. They made a high-profile guest appearance on Jay-Z's hit Big Pimpin', which we're going to get into later because there's a lot of drama around that. They also appeared on 3 6 Mafia's hit Sippin' on Some Syrup, which they might have been talking about lean, which we're going to get into that as well. Both of these collaborations were great for the reputation of UGK and helped to bring them back into the spotlight after their little hiatus. Anticipation grew for the group's next project, but Jive Records kind of failed to capitalize on that momentum, so their next release in 2001 with their 4th album, Dirty Money, wasn't as big a hit. In 2002, Pimp C was incarcerated for an aggravated gun assault charge. While Pimp C was incarcerated, Bun B continued on with UGK, making guest appearances on other artists' songs under the name UGK, not just Bun B, even though half of the group was in jail. And each of those songs mentioned Pimp C or featured a free Pimp C or a chant about freeing Pimp C because people were outraged because they believed the punishment given to Pimp C was way harsher than the crime he committed to get it. Unfortunately, Julia Beverly stated, quote, Texas in the year 2000 was the worst time and place in history for anyone, especially a 26-year-old black man, to find himself in a courtroom, end quote. Let's take this story all the way back. Let's just reel it back for a second. Firstly, we need to talk about the Master P situation. So sometime in the late 1990s, Pimp C produced Master P's song, Break 'Em Off Something, but he was never paid for it. This led to Pimp C publicly criticizing Master P. In retaliation, Master P and some of his associates entered Pimp C's hotel room and pistol whipped him. But that wasn't the end of it. So Master P actually called Jay Prince for permission to kill Pimp C, but was denied the request. Jay Prince was the CEO of Rap-A-Lot Records, where UGK and Pimp C were signed, but he also had a lot of pull. So he ended up banning Master P's record company from that part of Texas for quite a while after this incident. DJ Screw was known for his creation of the chopped and screwed DJ technique. This technique actually changed the game for Houston hip-hop. Pimp C was one of the many artists who embraced and popularized this DJ style in their music. But DJ Screw on November 16, 2000 was found dead in his recording studio due to an overdose. He died from a codeine overdose. So lean, or purple drank, was all the rage as a recreational drug. This was made by mixing prescription grade cough or cold syrup containing an opioid drug, typically codeine, and an antihistamine drug with a soda and sometimes a hard candy. Different people made it different ways, kind of, but basically it was mostly like codeine mixed with soda. This beverage originated in Houston in the 1960s and is popular with hip-hop culture, especially in the southern states. There's plenty of people that have rapped about it. I mean, we talked about the 3 6 Mafia song. So Pimp C was pretty upset about DJ Screw's death. He was not having a good time about it. And just a month later, Pimp C, carrying a 9mm pistol in his waistband, decided to go to the mall. Rumor has it he had his eye on this woman who works at one of the kiosks, and he wanted to go, see her again. And while there, he went into a shoe store to buy new boots. He knew the store manager because he frequented that mall, and specifically that store. A group of people walked into the shoe store, and in an attempt to make conversation, the store manager asked the friends if they knew who that was, gesturing to Pimp C. Lakita Hewlett started by saying she didn't know him, and then the conversation escalated quickly because of the rude comments she was making, and in turn, the rude comments that he was making back, and this kind of got out of hand really quick. But the turning point was when Lakita said to Pimp C, quote, "It ain't like you motherfucking Master P," end quote. And this just made Pimp C explode. The friends and the store manager all could see that this was going too far, and everyone was trying to intervene. Then Lakita reached inside her purse, and Pimp C thought she was reaching for a weapon, so that's when he lifted his jacket to show her that he had one too. That's when the friends were like, "We're out. We're leaving." She left too. But as they were walking out of the mall, Lakita passed by a police officer at the security desk and told the police officer that a man had pulled a gun on her. She then started yelling that he had put the gun to her side and threatened to kill her. Pimp C, not really knowing that Lakita had stopped and talked to a police officer. He left the mall and they were yelling at him, whatever. He went to go to his car. He was like, I'm getting out of here. In the parking lot, he was then surrounded by 8 cops. But instead of listening to their orders to get on the ground, he opened the driver's door and started to get inside. That's when he was rushed by police and forced to the ground. He was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Most people believed his time just didn't fit the crime. He brandished a firearm, but he didn't actually hold it to anyone. Like, he didn't hold anybody at gunpoint. That was just her exaggerating the situation. That didn't seem to matter because at the time, they were trying to blame music for all the violence in the world, and especially like any gang violence or any black violence, honestly, they were blaming the music. They were blaming the rappers. And so for Pimp C to be a rapper and to be in this situation, they were like, let's like really get him, so maybe we'll teach a lesson to all these other rappers. So he ended up just being collateral damage in the situation. So he was sentenced to 8 years in prison in August of 2002. But was released in December of 2005 and placed on parole. However, while he was in prison, Rap-A-Lot Records released his solo debut, Sweet James Jones Stories, in March 2005. He also married his wife, Shannara, while he was in prison in 2003. His friends said that when he got out, he was super clean and focused. They were talking about both like drugs and his future, that he was just like ready to go. He didn't understand why everyone was fighting. He thought everyone needed to put their petty stuff away and just focus on the music and on making money, and that if they all worked together, everything would be fine. He told his friends and really anyone who would listen that, quote unquote, they wanted them to be fighting because then they weren't being productive. When rappers killed each other or they had beef with each other, they don't make as much money, and it proves the point that they're nothing but gangsters. But also, Pimp C wanted to keep the goal at the forefront and put all the gangster stuff away. Let's just be rappers. Let's all help each other out and like move forward. He wanted all his Texas rap friends to get along so they could do one great big Texas tour. He wanted everyone to make money together. That was what he kept saying. Let's all make money. Let's all go get money. His first post-incarceration album, Pimpilation, was released in July 2006. The group released their 5th studio album the following year on August 7th. This album reached number 1 on the Billboard 200 albums chart. Unfortunately, Pimp C's life came to an end on December 4th, 2007, when he was found dead at the Mondrian Hotel in West Hollywood. He was in LA to perform with Too Short at the House of Blues and to record some songs, and he was supposed to fly home the morning of the 4th with his wife and cousin waiting for him at the airport. When he didn't show up, his wife called the hotel and requested that they check on him. And that's when they found his body unresponsive and the paramedics were called. His death was ruled an accidental overdose from a combination of lean and his pre-existing sleep apnea. According to DJ Paul of 3 6 Mafia, Pimp C's manager Rick Martin, who was also his manager, described seeing the rapper's body, quote, laying down like he was praying, but there was blood around like he was shot. They thought he was shot in the head, but they didn't know what the hell happened because there was blood everywhere, end quote. They didn't say anything about a bullet hole, though. I think they jumped straight to being shot because they couldn't figure out why else there would be blood all over the place. And then Pimp C's mom, Mama West, didn't believe the overdose story, or still doesn't believe the overdose story, because she said that Pimp C would call her before he went to bed every single night. And that night, he didn't call her. Not only that, but he always slept with candles going, and so he lit these candles, but the candles had burned all the way down. So they assumed that he had been dead for a day and a half to 2 days because the candles were completely run out of wax, and they wouldn't have done that just overnight. One more UGK album came out because Bun B and Pimp C had already recorded a lot of songs for it, so that album, UGK for Life, was released in 2009. But there are a lot of conspiracies as to why Pimp C was murdered. Not very many people believe that he died of an accidental overdose, and those that do believe it, I think believe it out of respect for the family, or that's what I found, that they haven't publicly said they don't believe it because they want to be respectful. And this leads us into the conspiracies. So before he died, Pimp C was talking way too much. Like I said earlier, he was trying to get everyone to just stop beefing, just hang out together, just all be friendly, kumbaya, let's all record together and do our same thing. He started calling out record labels for turning artists against each other. He said of the music industry, quote, "They are inclined to keep us as dumb as possible. They know that if we get to communicating and putting our heads together and comparing notes, we're going to figure some shit out real fast. They also know that if we get on the same page, there's a chance that we could unionize. They really don't want that. They don't want rappers united. They don't want artists united. They want division because divided, they can conquer," end quote. If the artists are more focused on their beef and retaliation for whatever, they are not as focused on what their label is doing. So this allows the labels to screw over the artists. But artists often make raps about the person that they're fighting with, which leads to more music and more sales. And we could take this even one step further, because if the record labels are in on it together, they are creating this beef. So like rapper A makes a song, and then rapper B retaliates with a song. So now both record labels are profiting from these two people fighting. The whole time they're fighting, they're focused on that fight. They're not focused on their record label who has their back doing whatever and selling whatever, and just they get paid whatever. They feel like they're getting paid a lot, and they're not actually getting paid as much as they're worth because their record labels are screwing them over by creating this beef between them and somebody else. And then you have the listeners that are going to listen to their rapper, and their rapper raps about, like, rapper A is rapping about rapper B. So now they're going to go listen to rapper B, be like, cool, what are they saying about rapper A? And they're going to go back and forth listening to both rappers, trying to figure out what they're fighting about, because that's what people do. People love drama. Anyways, Pimp C's song, Knocking Doors Down, was about getting all the Southern rappers together and getting real money. If they work together, they can achieve more than if they are divided. That's exactly what he was saying. So in the music video for the song, a lot of big rappers were featured. And actually in the video that I watched about his life, a lot of the rappers that were there, they weren't supposed to be there, but they just kept showing up. And then every rapper that would show up, they just put in the music video. Like, he was all for this, like, cohesive group. But that wasn't the only thing he was speaking out about. He was also exposing some big names in the music industry for allegedly being gay. Specifically, he called out Russell Simmons, who co-founded the hip-hop label Def Jam Recordings, and Neo, among other people that he was like, yeah, that person's gay. He said he didn't really have a problem with gay people, but that they shouldn't be sleeping with women with their dirty dicks. He said that basically, like, if you are putting your dick into somebody else's butthole, it's got poop on it. Don't go put it in our women, like, and poison our women. He was also speaking out about the prices of drugs. He said that Atlanta didn't have any water around them, which isn't really true because the eastern side of the state is literally touching the ocean. But that's why they couldn't get cheap dope, is because he said the drugs needed to come from Miami or Texas, and that they would have to then pay like a moving cost for someone to drive the drugs from Texas or Miami to Atlanta. So there's no way that they can sell drugs for as cheap as they're saying that they're selling them if they're getting these drugs from Texas and Miami. I think he was implying that the drugs they were getting in Atlanta were not as good quality. He also called Atlanta out for not being Southern. He's like, look at your time zone. You're in the Eastern time zone, so you're not a Southern state. I don't think that's how we qualify states being Southern or not, but that's what he said. Anyway, it is believed that he was killed because he was a threat to the record labels and that he might have been able to unionize rappers, which would have led to them gaining more control over their own music. Of course, that would be a threat. He was already working on doing this and gaining traction doing it. He was so real and kept it real with his fellow rappers, but he also was a mentor to a lot of young rappers and was a huge name for Houston rap. So he had the influence over the hip hop community in Texas. Or he was killed for exposing people as gay. Of course, it could be both. Him exposing rappers as gay means that their music might not sell as good and the record labels would suffer. I think it really does all come back to the record labels, and there's a couple more reasons too we'll get into in just a second. Pimp C's death was ruled an accidental overdose, but the theory is that he was actually poisoned. So the night that he died, he was not alone in his room. There were 2 other men and a woman in his room with him. He went to the bathroom, and one of the guys told the other 2 that he was going to play a prank on Pimp C. That's when he put something in his drink. When Pimp C took a drink of the poisoned drink, he just started throwing up blood. And this actually makes sense because there was blood all over the bed where he died, and he was kneeling down. So he probably fell over coughing up blood, getting blood everywhere, which is also why there was no talk about an entry or exit wound from a bullet hole, because he wasn't shot. He was poisoned. But they couldn't figure out, or it didn't make sense as to where the blood came from because nobody thought that maybe he was poisoned. And then they blamed his death on a combination of sleep apnea and drugs because there wasn't enough lean in his system to have killed him. So they had to come up with some other reason as to why he died. And the only thing they could think of was, well, he had sleep apnea. Maybe he aspirated in his sleep. And the guy that poisoned him was going around bragging about killing Pimp C. But that guy was never brought to justice because he died the same way Pimp C died. And then his brother was also killed. He was killed by a tractor, but you get the point. They were tying up loose ends, which is why I think the brother was in the room. He was the other man in the room. I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm thinking. Pimp C's cousin, Edgar, who was supposed to pick him up from the airport, suggested that maybe Pimp C's wife, Shannara, was in on the death. He said that usually he traveled with Pimp C and they would always get connecting rooms whenever they traveled in case of an emergency. But before that trip specifically, Shannara was already acting weird. And then she told Pimp that Edgar needed to work, so he couldn't go on the trip. And Edgar revealed that that wasn't true, that he had not told Shannara that he needed to work, that he was actually planning on going with Pimp C to LA. But that wasn't the whole thing. Shannara and Pimp C got into this big fight on their way to the airport, and this is really weird. So he wanted to take a car service to the airport, but she wanted to drive the Bentley that they had. Uber wasn't a thing then. He didn't think it was a good idea to take such an expensive car to the airport and park it there, which I totally get. We take our cheapest, most beat up car to the airport if we're going to leave it there overnight or for any amount of time. But happy wife, happy life, right? So she actually ended up winning the argument and they took the Bentley to the airport. But then they did something really weird. They didn't park the Bentley in the regular airport parking lot. They parked it in a tow-away zone, which why? So then Pimp wanted to call Edgar to go get the car and park it where it needed to be, or just take it home and they would call him when he needed a ride. But Shannara insisted that she fly home from LA to Texas to move the car herself. Mind you, Pimp C and Edgar were very, very close. They did all kinds of things together. And the day that he went to the mall, his mom was actually mad at him because he didn't take Edgar with him. They did everything together. So Pimp C fully trusted Edgar to take the Bentley home for him. Was not a big deal. The fact that she would fly, in your right mind, who would do that? You're going to fly all the way home from LA and leave your trip early to move your car when you could easily call his cousin. That's really odd behavior. But then, after his death, she had a whole falling out with his family, his entire family. And she had one of his kids, but he had other kids from other people, and she didn't take care of them. She was in charge of his estate after he passed, and she oversaw all the money and all the business matters and all of that. And in 2016, Pimp C's son, Chad Jr., actually filed a lawsuit to get her removed as the head of the estate because of mishandling funds. There was missing jewelry up to $150,000 worth. His house was in foreclosure, and the Bentley had been repossessed. She also never gave any of the money to the kids. She kept it all. And her argument for that was that she never kept the kids from using Pimp C's name or likeness to make money, so they should have just gone out and made money themselves. She even dropped 3 more Pimp C albums after his death, although she claimed to not see any money from those albums at all. And this brings up the question, did she have him killed, or what? Did she know that he was going to be killed? She had plenty to gain from his death. But some other people do believe that Pimp C's rapping partner, Bun B, was responsible for his death, or that him and Shannara were in on it together. Rumor has it that they were rapping partners, but they just really weren't that close, and that Bun B was a lot more conservative and political than Pimp C was. Like, Bun B was really careful not to offend anyone, whereas Pimp C was the exact opposite. He would just say whatever. He would call everybody out. He would just say how it was. So Bun B was looking for a way out of UGK, and he wanted to break ties with Pimp C. Bun B did gain a lot of attention after the passing of Pimp C, and he went on to have a very successful solo career. Especially with Pimp C always pushing against the music industry, Bun B probably knew that he couldn't take things to the next level with Pimp C. Like, he needed to just be done with him. So if he wanted to move forward, he needed to get away from Pimp C. But others believe that Jay-Z was involved in his death. So Pimp C wasn't super into the idea of doing the song Big Pimpin' with Jay-Z. It was more like Bun B's idea, and they actually offered like $1 million to do this song, and the people that were setting it up, they only wanted $100,000 of it, so they're like, you guys get to split $900,000. So you're going home with almost half $500,000 at the end of the day. Like, that's pretty good to do one song. But Pimp was a Tupac fan while Jay-Z was friends with Biggie. And Tupac and Jay-Z had dissed each other on tracks in the past, and Pimp was loyal and was such a big fan that he didn't want to work with anyone who might have issues with Tupac. But Bun B and his record label really talked him into it. So he agreed to do it, but he wasn't going to do it like easily. He was actually very difficult about the whole thing. He only sang like 8 bars. And then during the recording of the music video, he insisted that his Mercedes-Benz was in the music video. So they actually had to ship it to the shooting site of the music video so that way his Mercedes-Benz could be it. He was like, I'm not doing this music video if my car isn't in it. So he was kind of making things a little difficult. And then throughout the making of the song and afterwards, Jay-Z and Pimp C did not get along. It didn't help that Pimp C and Beyonce allegedly made a sex tape together. Beyonce is from Houston, and she was up and coming at the time, and Pimp C was huge in Houston. Like, he was the guy to know. But around the same time that Big Pimpin' was coming out, Jay-Z and Beyonce were meeting, and that's when they were starting to date. So this might have been like a little bit of a conflict of interest. Jay-Z probably didn't like the idea of a sex tape floating around of Beyonce and Pimp C, and maybe he didn't know about it right away. Maybe he learned about it later, which is why Pimp C wasn't killed until 2007. But Pimp C was bragging about having a sex tape that would make him millions, that would be bigger than the Kim Kardashian sex tape. He didn't come out and say exactly who was on the tape, but that it was a famous R&B singer. This tape was shown to another rapper, Pimpin' Ken, which lends to the credibility that it was a real sex tape. According to Bun B, one time they were all in the studio with Beyonce, and Jay-Z called to check in, and he was like, hey, who's in the studio? There was like 9 guys there, and when he heard that Beyonce was there, I mean, he knew Beyonce was there, but he was like, so what is she wearing? And he found out that she was wearing like this sexy outfit, and he demanded that every man in that studio get out, especially Pimp C. He was not going to have anybody in there watching his woman record music. And we already know that Beyonce and Jay-Z are a powerful couple that will do basically anything to get what they want. Coincidentally, Pimp C was found dead on Jay-Z's birthday. Which leads to the question, was this hit a birthday present to Jay-Z? I mean, we've heard of weirder things. And then, of course, there's the rumors that Jay Prince, the owner of the record label Rap-A-Lot that Pimp C was signed to, got the sex tape from Pimp C and tried to clear the air between him and Jay-Z and Beyonce, but was that by killing him that he was clearing the air? Like, if Jay Prince was involved, it kind of brings many of the theories together, because now we've got the record labels, and we can talk about, Jay-Z and Beyonce being involved. We can talk about, all kinds of things. Pimp C aired out some of Jay Prince's dirty laundry in his music right before he died, too. He could have been taken out for a multitude of reasons. It could have been all the reasons that I stated. Because, of course, there's also the Illuminati theory, I forgot to mention. So Pimp C was taken out by the Illuminati for airing out artists and executives for being gay. So again, it works with all the other theories. This would also work with the Jay-Z and Beyonce stuff, because we know that they're in the Illuminati. And not just members, like, they're pretty high up now. So maybe, this is just a thought, Jay-Z needed to take someone out to gain membership into this dark society, and Pimp C was like killing two birds with one stone because he's like, well, I already don't like the guy, and I need to kill somebody to join the Illuminati. What if Beyonce and I can both join the Illuminati if I can kill Pimp C and take him out? He's a pretty prominent guy. This should do the trick. I think every single theory could be true. I think if you wrap it just right, because of how much Pimp C was releasing, because of how many things that he was talking about, that could have been one of the reasons that they wanted to get rid of him. And then you have the Jay-Z and Beyonce situation, and you have the record labels already kind of pissed off at him. They're like, well, God, get rid of this guy. Like, he's just causing problems. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say about this one. But until next week, my friends, stay skeptical, and I will see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Valaha, for our awesome intro.